They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but mine was served piping hot with a side of corporate chaos that would make Wall Street traders weep. By the time I walked out of Meridian Solutions for the last time, I had single-handedly orchestrated the most spectacular corporate exodus in the company's 40-year history. 3 major clients, 18 years of institutional knowledge, and enough insider secrets to make my former boss question every decision he'd made since graduating business school. My name is Catherine Blake, and this is the story of how I turned a devastating betrayal into the sweetest victory of my professional life. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there, scattered across months of increasingly tense meetings and whispered conversations that stopped abruptly when I entered the room. But after 18 years of unwavering loyalty to Meridian Solutions, I had developed a dangerous case of complacency. I trusted the wrong people, believed in the wrong promises, and foolishly thought that excellence and dedication were enough to protect me from the corporate vultures circling overhead. It was a Tuesday morning in March when my world imploded. The Seattle rain was particularly aggressive that day, hammering against the floor-to-ceiling windows of our downtown office building like nature's own warning system. I had arrived early, as was my custom, to review the quarterly reports before the 9 o'clock meeting. My coffee was still steaming when Marcus Webb, our CEO, knocked on my office door with that practiced smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Catherine, do you have a moment?" His voice carried that artificially casual tone that every seasoned professional learns to recognize as the harbinger of bad news. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, noting how he closed the door behind him with unusual care. In 18 years, Marcus had never once closed my office door during our conversations. We had an open-door policy, after all, and I had been his right-hand woman since he took over from his father 12 years ago. "I'll get straight to the point," he said, settling into the chair and adjusting his tie with nervous fingers. "The board has made some difficult decisions about restructuring. We're facing some challenging market conditions, and we need to make some adjustments to stay competitive." The corporate speak was flowing like water, but I could see the discomfort in his posture. Marcus was many things, but he wasn't typically one to dance around difficult conversations. This hesitation told me everything I needed to know about what was coming. "What kind of adjustments?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "We're implementing salary reductions across the senior management team. It's temporary, of course, just until we can stabilize our position in the market." He paused, finally meeting my eyes. "Your salary will be reduced by 40%, effective immediately." The words hit me like a physical blow. 40%. After 18 years of building this company from a small regional firm into a major player in the consulting industry, after sacrificing weekends, holidays, and countless personal relationships for the sake of Meridian Solutions, they were cutting my pay by nearly half. 40%, I repeated, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. "And the other senior managers?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "The cuts vary depending on position and performance metrics." "What are the percentages for the others?" "Catherine, I don't think it's appropriate to discuss other employees' compensation." I leaned back in my chair, studying his face with the same analytical precision I used to dissect client proposals. "Marcus, I've been with this company since before you graduated from college. I trained half the people in this building. I brought in 3 of our 4 major clients. I think I deserve to know how my performance metrics compare to my colleagues." The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Finally, Marcus cleared his throat and looked down at his hands. "The other senior managers will see reductions of 10 to 15%. 10 to 15%. While I was losing 40% of my income, my colleagues were taking what amounted to a minor adjustment. The inequity was so stark, so deliberately targeted, that I actually felt a moment of surreal disbelief. This couldn't be happening. Not to me. Not after everything I had given to this company. I see, I said, my voice taking on a calm, professional tone that I didn't feel. And what exactly are these performance metrics that justify such a significant discrepancy? Marcus's face flushed slightly. Catherine, you know I value your contributions immensely. This isn't about your performance. It's about market positioning and operational efficiency. Operational efficiency, I repeated. You mean you're paying me less to do the same job I've been doing for 18 years? The job that brought in 60% of our revenue last quarter. The market is changing, Catherine. We need to adapt our compensation structure to reflect current realities. I stood up slowly, walking to the window that overlooked the bustling streets of downtown Seattle. The rain had softened to a gentle drizzle, and I could see people hurrying along the sidewalks below, each pursuing their own version of success and security. How many of them had ever experienced the particular brand of betrayal I was feeling right now? Marcus, I said without turning around, I need you to be honest with me. Is this about the Henderson account? The Henderson account. 3 months ago, I had landed the biggest client in Meridian's history, a multinational corporation that needed comprehensive restructuring consultation. The contract was worth $12 million over 3 years, and I had spent 6 months nurturing the relationship, flying to their headquarters in Chicago 4 times, and personally guaranteeing the quality of our work. 2 weeks after we signed the contract, I learned that Marcus had been telling the board that he had secured the Henderson deal himself. The Henderson account is a company success, Marcus said carefully. We all contributed to that achievement. I turned back to face him, and for the first time in our 12-year working relationship, I saw him not as my boss or my colleague, but as my adversary. We both know that's not true, Marcus. Just like we both know that this salary reduction isn't about market conditions or operational efficiency. This is about marginalizing me until I quit, so you can take full credit for the client relationships I've built over the past 2 decades. Catherine, I think you're overreacting. This is a business decision, nothing more. Then explain to me why David Peterson, who hasn't brought in a new client in 3 years, is only losing 10% of his salary. Explain why Jennifer Martinez, who lost the Caldwell account last year, is only losing 15%. Explain why I, who has consistently outperformed every other senior manager in this company, am being singled out for a 40% reduction. Marcus stood up, straightening his jacket with forced composure. I understand you're upset, Catherine. Take some time to process this. We can discuss the details of the transition next week. The transition? Your new role will have adjusted responsibilities to match your adjusted compensation. And there it was, the final piece of the puzzle. They weren't just cutting my pay, they were demoting me. After 18 years of building my career, establishing my reputation, and sacrificing everything for the success of this company, they were pushing me aside like an outdated piece of equipment. I watched Marcus leave my office, closing the door behind him with the same careful precision he had used when entering. The silence that followed was deafening. I sat back down at my desk, staring at the quarterly reports that suddenly seemed meaningless. The numbers I had carefully analyzed, the projections I had meticulously calculated, the strategic recommendations I had spent weeks developing, none of it mattered anymore. But as I sat there in the aftermath of my professional earthquake, something unexpected began to happen. The shock was giving way to something else, something sharper and more focused. I started thinking about the Henderson account, about the Blackstone Group contract I had secured 2 years ago, about the Morrison Industries deal that had saved the company during the 2019 recession. All of those clients had signed with Meridian Solutions because of me. They trusted me, not the company. They valued my expertise, my track record, my personal commitment to their success. I opened my laptop and began scrolling through my client contact list. 18 years of relationship building, 18 years of trust and mutual respect, 18 years of proving my worth in an industry that didn't always appreciate what I brought to the table. Marcus could take my salary and my title, but he couldn't take my relationships. I pulled up the Henderson Industries contact information first. James Henderson, the CEO, had specifically requested that I be the primary contact for their account. We had developed a rapport during our negotiations, and he had expressed confidence in my ability to deliver results. What would he think if he knew that the person he had entrusted with his company's transformation was being treated like a disposable asset? Next, I looked up the Blackstone Group. Margaret Blackstone had been one of my most challenging clients, a perfectionist who demanded excellence at every stage of our engagement. It had taken months to earn her trust, but once I did, she had become one of my strongest advocates. She had specifically credited me with saving her company millions of dollars in operational costs. Finally, I reviewed the Morrison Industries file. Thomas Morrison had been my first major client, back when I was just a senior analyst trying to prove myself in a male-dominated industry. He had taken a chance on me when no one else would, and I had delivered results that exceeded his expectations. Over the years, our professional relationship had evolved into something approaching friendship. He had been a mentor, a supporter, and a source of valuable referrals. 3 clients, 3 relationships built on trust, expertise, and mutual respect. 3 contracts worth a combined $38 million over the next 4 years. 3 accounts that represented the foundation of Meridian Solutions' current success. I closed my laptop and walked to the window again. The rain had stopped, and patches of blue sky were beginning to appear between the clouds. For the first time since Marcus had delivered his devastating news, I felt a sense of clarity. They wanted to treat me like I was expendable. They wanted to reduce my value to a line item on a budget spreadsheet. They wanted to erase 18 years of contributions and claim credit for my achievements. I smiled, and it felt like the first genuine smile I had experienced in months. They had made a critical error in their calculations. They had assumed that my loyalty to Meridian Solutions was stronger than my loyalty to myself. They had assumed that I would accept their betrayal with grace and dignity, that I would fade quietly into the background while they reaped the benefits of my hard work. They were wrong. I spent the rest of the day in my office, maintaining my usual professional demeanor, while my mind raced with possibilities. I attended meetings, reviewed proposals, and responded to emails, all while developing a plan that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of my career and the future of Meridian Solutions. That evening, I drove home to my apartment in the Capitol Hill neighborhood, a cozy space that I had purchased 5 years ago with the financial security that came from being a successful senior manager. As I sat in my living room with a glass of wine, I allowed myself to fully process the magnitude of what had happened. 18 years of my life, 18 years of dedication and sacrifice, dismissed with a corporate restructuring announcement. But I also allowed myself to feel something else: excitement. For the first time in years, I was free to make choices based on my own interests rather than the company's needs. I was free to pursue opportunities that aligned with my values rather than their priorities. I was free to build something new, something that would reflect my true worth rather than their diminished perception of it. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I had memorized years ago, but never expected to use. "Catherine Blake," came the familiar voice of Robert Chen, a former colleague who had left Meridian Solutions 3 years ago to start his own consulting firm. "I was wondering when you'd call." "Robert," I said, unable to keep the smile out of my voice. "I think it's time we had that conversation about opportunities in the independent consulting market." "I heard about the salary cuts," he said. "Marcus really doesn't understand the asset he's losing, does he?" "No," I replied, "but I think his clients are about to get a very clear education on that subject." The next morning, I arrived at the office with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. I had spent the previous evening researching the process for starting my own consulting firm, reviewing non-compete clauses in my employment contract, and developing a timeline for my transition. The non-compete agreement was standard for the industry but had several notable exceptions, including the right to work with clients who specifically requested my services. I spent the first 2 hours of my workday reviewing the contract details for each of my 3 major clients. All 3 agreements included provisions for consultant continuity, meaning that if I left Meridian Solutions, the clients had the right to follow me to my new firm. It was a standard clause that most companies included to protect their investment in specific consultant relationships. At 10 o'clock, I placed my first call. James Henderson, please. This is Catherine Blake from Meridian Solutions. Catherine, James's voice was warm and enthusiastic. I was just thinking about you. How are the preliminary assessments coming along? Actually, James, I'm calling about something else. I want to give you a heads up about some changes that might affect our working relationship. What kind of changes? Meridian Solutions is going through some restructuring, and there's a possibility that I might not be your primary contact going forward. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Catherine, you are the primary reason we signed with Meridian. Your expertise and your track record were the deciding factors in our selection process. If you're not going to be our primary contact, we need to discuss whether this partnership is still viable. I understand your concern, James. I want to assure you that regardless of what happens with the restructuring, I'm committed to delivering the results we discussed. If necessary, I would be willing to continue our work through an independent consulting arrangement. You mean you'd leave Meridian? I'm exploring all options to ensure that you get the quality of service you deserve. Catherine, if you decide to go independent, Henderson Industries would be very interested in continuing our relationship. You have our complete confidence. I ended the call with a sense of satisfaction that I hadn't experienced in months. 1 down, 2 to go. My second call was to Margaret Blackstone, who was characteristically direct. Catherine, I hope you're not calling to tell me about more delays in the implementation timeline. Actually, Margaret, I'm calling to discuss some potential changes in our working relationship. What kind of changes? Meridian Solutions is making some structural adjustments, and there's a possibility that I might not be your primary consultant going forward. That's unacceptable, she said without hesitation. Catherine, you've been the only person at Meridian who understands our business model. You've saved us millions of dollars, and you've delivered every milestone on time and under budget. If Meridian thinks they can replace you with someone else, they're making a serious mistake. I appreciate your confidence, Margaret. I want to assure you that I'm committed to seeing our project through to completion, regardless of my employment status. Are you telling me you're considering leaving Meridian? I'm exploring all options to ensure that my clients receive the quality of service they deserve. Catherine, if you decide to go independent, the Blackstone Group would absolutely follow you. We've invested too much in this relationship to start over with someone new. The third call was the most difficult. Thomas Morrison had been with me since the beginning of my career, and our relationship extended beyond the purely professional. He had been a mentor and a friend, and I knew that any decision to leave Meridian would affect him personally as well as professionally. Thomas, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Never, Catherine. You know you're always welcome to call. What's on your mind? I wanted to talk to you about some changes that might be coming at Meridian Solutions. What kind of changes? I took a deep breath and decided to be completely honest with him. Thomas, Meridian has decided to restructure my role and reduce my compensation significantly. I'm exploring the possibility of starting my own consulting firm. There was a long pause, and when Thomas spoke again, his voice was thoughtful. Catherine, I'm not surprised. I've been watching Marcus's leadership style for the past few years, and I've been concerned about how he treats his most valuable employees. You've been the backbone of that company for as long as I've known you. I wanted to give you advance notice because I know any transition would affect your account. Catherine, let me be clear about something. Morrison Industries doesn't have a relationship with Meridian Solutions. We have a relationship with you. If you decide to go independent, we'll be your first client. In fact, I've been hoping you'd make this move for years. Thomas, I can't tell you how much that means to me. You've earned it, Catherine. You've consistently delivered exceptional results, and you've always put our interests first. That's the kind of consultant we want to work with, regardless of what company name is on the letterhead. By the end of the day, I had secured commitments from all three of my major clients. They were not only willing to follow me to an independent consulting firm, but they were enthusiastic about the prospect. The combined value of their contracts would provide me with a solid foundation for my new business and a level of financial security that exceeded what I had been earning at Meridian Solutions, even before the salary reduction. I spent the next week working on my transition plan. I researched business licensing requirements, opened a business bank account, and began developing marketing materials for my new firm. I decided to call it Blake Strategic Consulting, a name that reflected both my personal brand and my focus on strategic business solutions. The most challenging part of the process was maintaining my professional composure while continuing to work at Meridian Solutions. I attended meetings, completed projects, and interacted with my colleagues as if nothing had changed, all while knowing that I was about to deliver a devastating blow to the company's financial stability. On Thursday morning, Marcus called me into his office for what he described as a transition meeting. He had prepared a detailed document outlining my new responsibilities, which were significantly reduced from my current role. I would no longer be the primary contact for any major clients, and my decision-making authority would be limited to projects worth less than $50,000. I think this new structure will be a good fit for your adjusted compensation level, he said, sliding the document across his desk. We're excited about the opportunities this creates for both you and the company. I read through the document carefully, noting the systematic way they had stripped away everything that made my job meaningful and challenging. They were essentially converting me from a senior strategic consultant into a junior analyst, managing small projects and supporting other people's client relationships. Marcus, I said, looking up from the document, I have to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. Do you really think I'm going to accept this? He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Catherine, I know it's an adjustment, but I think you'll find that the reduced stress level will actually be beneficial. You've been carrying a heavy load for a long time. You're right, I said, standing up and placing the document back on his desk. I have been carrying a heavy load. I've been carrying this company for 18 years. I've brought in more revenue than any other senior manager. I've built relationships with clients who trust me personally and professionally. I've sacrificed my personal life and my financial security for the success of Meridian Solutions. Catherine, I appreciate everything you've done for the company. No, Marcus, I don't think you do. If you appreciated what I've done, you wouldn't be sitting here trying to convince me to accept a 40% pay cut and a demotion. You'd be finding ways to retain me, not push me out. I'm not trying to push you out. I'm trying to find a solution that works for everyone. I smiled, and for the first time in our conversation, I felt completely calm. You're right, Marcus. You are trying to find a solution that works for everyone. Unfortunately, your solution works for everyone except me, so I'm going to find my own solution. What do you mean? I mean I'm resigning from Meridian Solutions, effective immediately. I'm starting my own consulting firm, and I'm taking my clients with me. The color drained from Marcus's face. Catherine, you can't do that. You have a non-compete agreement. I've reviewed my contract very carefully, Marcus. The non-compete clause has several exceptions, including the right to work with clients who specifically request my services. All three of my major clients have indicated that they would prefer to continue working with me directly rather than through Meridian Solutions. You can't take our clients. That's corporate theft. No, Marcus, that's business. These clients didn't sign with Meridian Solutions because of your company's reputation or your leadership. They signed because they trusted me to deliver results. When you decided to marginalize me, you essentially forfeited their loyalty. Marcus stood up, his face flushed with anger. Catherine, if you think you can just walk out of here and steal our biggest accounts, you're making a serious mistake. We'll fight this in court, if necessary. You're welcome to try, I said, maintaining my professional tone. But I should mention that I've already consulted with an attorney who specializes in employment law. My resignation and my decision to start an independent consulting firm are completely within my legal rights. My client's decision to follow me is their choice, not mine. I walked toward the door, then turned back to face him one last time. Marcus, you made a choice when you decided to cut my salary and demote me. You chose to treat me as expendable. You chose to undervalue my contributions. You chose to prioritize short-term cost savings over long-term client relationships. Now you get to live with the consequences of that choice. I left his office and walked directly to my own, where I began packing my personal belongings. Word of my resignation spread quickly through the office, and several colleagues stopped by to express their surprise and support. Many of them had been unaware of the extent of my salary reduction, and they were shocked by the company's treatment of someone who had been so instrumental in its success. By noon, I had cleared out my office and submitted my formal resignation letter to the Human Resources Department. The letter was brief and professional, stating simply that I was resigning to pursue independent consulting opportunities and that my last day of employment would be that day. As I walked through the office for the last time, carrying a box of personal items and 18 years of memories, I felt a complex mix of emotions. There was sadness at leaving behind colleagues and projects that had been important to me, but there was also excitement about the opportunities that lay ahead. For the first time in years, I was in complete control of my professional destiny. I spent the afternoon in my apartment, making phone calls to finalize the details of my new business. I scheduled meetings with each of my 3 major clients to discuss the transition process and to formally establish our new working relationships. I also reached out to several smaller clients who had worked with me over the years, many of whom expressed interest in continuing our professional relationship. By the end of the week, Blake Strategic Consulting had secured contracts worth over $40 million, more than I had ever been responsible for as a senior manager at Meridian Solutions. The irony was not lost on me that by trying to reduce my value to the company, Marcus had actually inspired me to realize my true worth in the marketplace. The impact on Meridian Solutions was immediate and devastating. The Henderson Industries contract alone represented nearly 30% of the company's annual revenue, and losing it created a significant financial crisis. The Blackstone Group and Morrison Industries contracts were equally critical to the company's stability, and their departure left Meridian Solutions scrambling to replace nearly 60% of its revenue base. Within a month, Marcus was forced to implement layoffs affecting nearly half of the company's workforce. The irony was brutal. In trying to save money by cutting my salary, he had created a situation that cost the company millions of dollars in lost revenue and dozens of jobs. But the story doesn't end there. The real satisfaction came 6 months later, when I learned that the board of directors had lost confidence in Marcus's leadership and had voted to remove him as CEO. The company's financial performance had deteriorated so significantly that they were forced to bring in outside management to attempt a turnaround. Meanwhile, Blake Strategic Consulting was thriving. I had hired 3 additional consultants to help manage the growing workload, and we had secured several new clients who were impressed by our track record and our commitment to personalized service. My income had increased by nearly 200% compared to what I had been earning at Meridian Solutions, even before the salary reduction. The most rewarding aspect of my new business was the freedom to work with clients who truly valued my expertise. I no longer had to navigate corporate politics or justify my worth to managers who didn't understand my contributions. I could focus entirely on delivering exceptional results for clients who appreciated and compensated me appropriately for my efforts. 1 year after my resignation, I received an unexpected phone call from Marcus. He had been unemployed for several months and was struggling to find a new executive position. His reputation in the industry had been damaged by the spectacular failure of his leadership at Meridian Solutions, and he was finding it difficult to convince potential employers that he could be trusted with major corporate responsibilities. "Catherine," he said, his voice lacking the confidence and authority I remembered, "I was wondering if we could meet for coffee. I'd like to discuss a potential opportunity." "What kind of opportunity, Marcus?" "I'm starting a consulting firm of my own, and I was hoping you might be interested in a partnership arrangement." I paused, considering the incredible irony of the situation. The man who had tried to marginalize me and reduce my value was now asking me to help him rebuild his career. "Marcus," I said finally, "I appreciate you thinking of me, but I'm very happy with my current situation. Blake Strategic Consulting is performing well, and I'm not interested in any partnership arrangements at this time." "Catherine, I know I made some mistakes at Meridian. I was under a lot of pressure from the board, and I made some decisions that I regret. I'd like the opportunity to make things right." "Marcus, you had 18 years to make things right. You chose to wait until it was convenient for you, and by then it was too late. I've moved on, and I suggest you do the same." I ended the call with a sense of closure that I hadn't realized I needed. Marcus had been a significant part of my professional life for over a decade, and his betrayal had shaken my confidence in ways that I was only beginning to understand. But his desperate phone call confirmed what I had suspected all along. He had never understood my true value, and he had paid the price for that ignorance. Today, 3 years after my resignation from Meridian Solutions, Blake Strategic Consulting is one of the most respected boutique consulting firms in the Pacific Northwest. We have a client roster that includes Fortune 500 companies, innovative startups, and established businesses looking to adapt to changing market conditions. My team of consultants shares my commitment to excellence and client service, and we have built a reputation for delivering results that exceed our clients' expectations. The financial success has been gratifying, but the personal satisfaction has been even more meaningful. I wake up every morning excited about the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. I work with clients who value my expertise and trust my judgment. I make decisions based on what's best for my business and my clients, not on corporate politics or bureaucratic constraints. Most importantly, I learned that loyalty is a two-way street. For 18 years, I had been loyal to Meridian Solutions, but they had not been loyal to me. When they decided to treat me as expendable, they freed me to pursue opportunities that better reflected my worth and my values. The revenge I took against Marcus and Meridian Solutions was not motivated by spite or anger, though I certainly felt both of those emotions. It was motivated by a desire to assert my true value in the marketplace and to build a business that would reflect my capabilities and my commitment to excellence. They say that success is the best revenge, and in my case, that proved to be absolutely true. By trying to diminish my value, Marcus had actually inspired me to realize my full potential. By treating me as disposable, he had motivated me to prove that I was, in fact, irreplaceable. The lesson I learned from this experience is that sometimes the best response to betrayal is not confrontation or retaliation, but simply the quiet confidence to walk away and build something better. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. When someone demonstrates that they don't value your contributions, don't waste your time trying to convince them otherwise. Instead, find people who do appreciate what you bring to the table, and invest your energy in building relationships that are based on mutual respect and shared values. 3 years later, I can honestly say that losing my job at Meridian Solutions was one of the best things that ever happened to me. It forced me to confront my own complacency and to take control of my professional destiny. It taught me that security comes not from relying on others to recognize your worth, but from having the confidence and the skills to create your own opportunities. Marcus thought he was cutting my salary and reducing my responsibilities. What he actually did was set me free to build the career I had always dreamed of, but never had the courage to pursue. For that, I suppose I should thank him. But I won't. He doesn't deserve the credit for my success, just as he didn't deserve the credit for the success I brought to Meridian Solutions. The real victory is not that I took his clients or that he lost his job. The real victory is that I discovered my own strength and my own worth. I learned that I didn't need Meridian Solutions to validate my capabilities or to provide me with security. I learned that the best revenge is not getting even, but getting ahead. And that's exactly what I did.